This is episode 9 of the Bluegrass Blues podcast. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Amy.
Well, Amy, I want to talk about something weird I saw this week, and it just blew my mind. I was in a Cracker Barrel, that restaurant chain that you see along the highway where it's just supposed to be home cooking and a return to nostalgia. And as I was walking through the area where you shop for the goodies that they sell, I noticed that their surveillance camera was on. And as people walked through the area, the camera would not only focus on their faces, but it would put little boxes around each face, which was something I used to see on the Person of Interest TV series that showed that, we were under surveillance and that they could just grab that box, blow it up, and identify the person walking through the area. And that's a Cracker Barrel. That's like, it's almost like we're in a surveillance state now. Have you seen anything like that?
I have, and in fact, there's been news about these flock cameras that are being purchased by Louisville Metro Police Department. We'd already had over 140 of those in place, and then they were adding another 140, and then they're accessing nearly 100 of these privately owned flock cameras. And the LMPD even has a program called FUSUS, F-U-S-U-S, which is integrating private security cameras into law enforcement monitoring. So this initiative, you guys, is actually going to allow police access to all of our cameras installed in homes, businesses, and other private properties. Your porch camera, your neighbor's porch camera. And to Jesse's point, we've always been a surveillance state, but it's really increasing under this authoritarian regime.
Right, it's Peter Thiel is now doing what Elon Musk was doing, and they're getting access to all our information. And if they have access to our information, then they want to know who the people are that they're having access to. So if you have this face recognition software, then it's just easy to track you down, which is kind of weird because it seems like that used to be an issue that Republicans were against. I remember, and it wasn't that long ago, I'm sure everybody remembers how there was this really crazed reaction to the coronavirus vaccine, when people were saying, I don't want to be shot because I don't want to get the shot because they're going to put trackers in our bodies with these shots, which is total insanity. And just the idea of being under surveillance. You don't need to get a shot to be under surveillance. You just carry a phone. Your phone can track you anywhere, and people are using those kind of things. Also, you see these things where people are attaching these trackers to their families, like husbands or abusers are using these tracking devices that they just put in someone's car or in someone's purse that they don't notice, and you're easily followed. But now it's becoming this major government effort, and with the danger of this is where an authoritarian government is going to do more than a government that's not authoritarian, even though the surveillance is always going to exist, and it's going to expand because the technology is getting easier to use. So, this is really troubling.
And we're seeing too that, for example, in California, they've got laws against this kind of surveillance, even license plate surveillance. And what we're seeing apparently is the use of this. Mm-hmm. There are Fourth Amendment issues. The ACLU has filed lawsuits about the use of these particular cameras, these flock cameras. But I just want people to know what's happening. And it was so creepy to me. And I was thinking about this movie. Jesse, you and I have seen this movie called The Lives of Others. Mm-hmm. It was made in 2006 by Florian Henkel. And it's about the monitoring of East Berlin residents by agents of the Stasi, the East Germany's secret police. And another thing I was thinking about was the real practical ramifications. There are a lot of us who've talked about Well, I would take my gay friends and hide them in my house, and I would take my immigrant neighbors and hide them in my house. But do you see where this is going? I mean, again, I feel like I'm back in Germany in the 30s and 40s, and we're going to be hiding people, but now we have all this technology, not just neighbors that are looking out to to inform on us, but now all of that kind of surveillance is going to be in our own homes.
Yeah, when you made that a reference to trying to hide people, I just started thinking of the opening of the movie *Inglourious Bastards*,
Yeah.
where you had the Nazi come into this farmhouse and essentially threaten this farmer by saying, "If you don't tell me where the people you're hiding are, I'm going to kill your family." And that's just the extreme of an authoritarian government. But the fact that we're constantly under surveillance, everything we own is, like I said, your cell phone, you're under surveillance.
Yeah.
You have an Apple Watch,
Yeah.
you're under
Alexa's
surveillance.
listening to
Yeah,
everything.
Alexa. Yeah, right. I was thinking I disengaged my Alexa because since Jeff Bezos has sold out to the government, he can just Alexa records what you're saying even if you don't use the magic word. So those are things that just show that we have to be careful about what we're doing, especially at this time. It's hopefully it gets better, but it also depends on who we have in office.
Yeah.
And the people that we're electing, are the people we are electing going to serve our interest, or are they going to serve the interest of the billionaire class or the hard right authoritarian class?
And speaking of people who we're electing, it's really important that we understand in Kentucky who some of these people are that are so-called Republican, officials in Kentucky. Joe Girth wrote a good opinion piece today in the Courier-Journal. It's August 14th, and it's called "Taunting Transgender Children Doesn't Make Jamie Comer a Man." And basically, it's galling and it's hideous. But Jamie Comer made a comment about boys not being able to play girls' sports at Fancy Farm a couple of weeks ago to thunderous applause. Thunderous applause. What do you think about that, Jesse? First of all, what's Fancy Farm?
Fancy Farm is this big gathering of politicians in Kentucky where essentially it's where people who are looking for higher office go to, rile up the base or, get their names out there in front of people. And the thing about Comer is I always think of Foghorn Leghorn, the cartoon character who's just really boisterous and ineffective. And the fact that he's picking on children just shows what a bully he is. And I will also extend this to Andy Barr, who's running for Senate. If you look at his campaign statement, he has a whole section on transgender athletes, which is it's not that many people. If you're going to pick on a group, he's picking on the smallest group he knows he can overwhelm, because once you get rid of that group, then they're going to pick on another group, and it's just going to escalate to the point where any person who disagrees with anything they say is going to be eventually tracked down. But I think it's cowardice, and it's also extremely stupid, because I don't know if people have been watching sports recently, but we have the Little League World Series going on now, and there are girls pitching in the Little League World Series against boys, and it's not an issue. It's also seen as something that's really interesting and really fun to look at. So are they going to go after girls in Little League sports next, because that's the next small group that they can pick on?
Right, and I want to piggyback off this. This controversy was manufactured by Republicans to take the place of abortion to help them win elections. And they pushed it only after Mississippi's draconian abortion ban had begun winding its way to the U.S. Supreme Court, that Senator Mitch McConnell had rigged, right? So anti-abortion zealotry was losing its oomph. What can we lift up? What's small group.
Who can we pick on now?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like, who can we bully?
Exactly.
That's
Who
what
can we bully? And this, I don't know if you all know this, but there are studies that say that 82% of transgender people have considered suicide, and 40% have actually tried it. Trans kids are most at risk. So these are the people being put at risk by the know-nothings in the GOP who are pushing the issue. It's cruel. These are bullies. And this is what we have to Comer may run for governor. Is this who you want to succeed Andy Beshear?
Right. Is this the best that the state of Kentucky has to offer? And yes, we can complain about the candidates, but I think we also have to complain about the voters, because the voters are allowing this to happen, and the result of this is that they're putting people in office who are, they're going to pick on people that they know they can beat, but in the meantime, they're also going to take everything that you have in terms of finances and give it to rich people. The big bullshit bill that they just passed is going to take away health care rights, and it's going to take away, it's taking away a lot of stuff that people need: food stamps, health care, education. So you can send money to Elon Musk so he can get another $100 billion. But Jamie Comer and Andy Barr and the Republican Party, and I'll say a lot of Democrats, are in the pockets of the billionaires. So their interests aren't aligned with the interest of the people.
Right.
And I was just looking it up. We are in a poor state, and the minimum wage in Kentucky is $7.25 an hour. That's nothing. That's nothing. And dates, if you work 40 hours, $7.25 an hour, you can't afford food. Not alone mentioning rent or just there's no such thing as health insurance. There's no such thing as luxury here, and we keep electing these people who are just going to keep taking away from poor people to make rich people even richer. And let's make no mistake about this. I'm sure Andy Barr is rich. I'm sure that Comer is rich, and it's just more things to worry about.
Well, and I want to lift up. I just shared with Jesse a really promising young Democrat in Iowa's campaign, and he's got a great video. Do you remember what his name is? Josh.
Josh,
I'll tell you in a second. So what I would love to see in Kentucky is this kind of energy that this young man is putting forward, and the messaging that he's putting forward. And we will put this on our website for you all to see. What's his name, Jesse?
Josh Turek.
Josh Turek, Turek.
Yeah, he's a former Paralympian. He campaigns in a wheelchair. He won a very red district, and now he's running for Senate.
Right.
Against, I guess, Joni Ernst.
Right.
The woman who in a town hall said, well, when someone asked about health care, she said, well, we're all going to die anyway.
Right.
And then she doubled down on it later, like walking through a cemetery being smug and, saying, well, people didn't know they were going to die. I'm sorry about that.
You've got to see this video. Come to our website, the bluegrassbluespodcast.com, and take a look at it. He had spina bifida. He was born with spina bifida, so he's used a wheelchair, and he benefited from his dad's VA health care, right, and other public benefits so that he could get good health care, became an amazing Paralympian. He won his first race by 6 votes, only 6 votes. This is why it's so important to vote, everybody, so important. And then he won again, and he has the reddest district that any Democrat holds in Iowa. And he says that Iowans love an underdog, which of course he is. But, this is the kind of grit and determination and going out and meeting people at their homes and meeting people at their businesses and meeting people at the bar or wherever it is that we need. And we need positive messaging, like healthcare saved my life would be a good message, right?
Yeah, saved a lot of lives, especially in this state.
And I want to lift up another opinion piece that I found. This is in the Northern Kentucky Tribune, and it's August 14th, and this is by Karen Saylor. And she basically tells her story about it. It's called I Can't Just Get Over How Medicaid Has Kept Me in the Fight Against Cancer. And during the pandemic, she got COVID that resulted in a rare autoimmune disease. And because her immune system was depressed, it raised her cancer risk by 30%. And unfortunately, she got breast cancer. So basically, her total cost for her treatment program would be $180,000 every month if she didn't have Medicaid. And she asked...
That's a month. We have to emphasize that. It's not a year. That's a month.
A month. $180,000 a month. And she asked, what working family can afford that? I mean, what family except the billionaires could afford that, really, right? So her husband drives a forklift, right? So she gets some insurance coverage as a spouse. Great. But she'd be dead without Medicaid. And basically, she ends her op-ed by basically saying, President Trump and Senator McConnell, since you two do not understand the extent of what you've just done by passing the big bullshit bill, I offer my story as an example. Once your Medicaid cuts come into effect, Americans will die every single day because you made it impossible for them to afford crucial and life-saving medical care. Let's let that sink in.
But there's one thing I disagree with on that, and she's saying that they aren't aware of the extent of what they're doing. They know fully well what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're just bad people. And you're talking about health care. I don't know if you saw the Nebraska congressman. He was Mike Flood. He was in a town hall meeting, and people were asking him about health care and why can't we have Medicare for all. And first of all, he said that no one deserves free health care. And then he said, when someone asked, well, why don't we do Medicare for all? He said, we can't afford it. But he's one of the congressmen who voted for the big bullshit bill, which took away billions of dollars, probably could amount to trillions of dollars over time. And again, that money is not going to poor people. It's not going to improve schools. It's not going to improve quality of life. It's going to billionaires. And Mike Flood's another rich person who's going to benefit from that. And Mike Flood's town hall kind of shows why Republicans in this state aren't doing town hall meetings, because they're cowards, as we just showed with Comer bullying transgender children. They are afraid to face their crowds. They just follow along with whatever Trump tells them to do, and they are taking the food out of the mouths of children. They are the worst kind of people you can imagine, which gets me to the point of, why do people keep voting for them? What is it about voters in this state and voters in red districts that keep voting for people who have none of their interest in mind? Just recently, I was looking at the industries that Kentucky relies on, and the bourbon industry is getting killed because of tariffs and because of policies by Republicans like Comer and Barr and Flood and Joni Ernst and Donald Trump. People aren't buying bourbon. It's the major export, one of the major exports from Kentucky, and it's the fault of the Republicans. But we keep electing Republicans in this state, and now there's this move to gerrymander other states and other areas to not better represent people, but to get more Republicans in office so they can take more away from us. And they just, more for them, less for us. That's their whole philosophy now. And if they're not going to do it, they're not going to come out and say it. They're going to do things like say, we're going to go after transgender children, or we're going to go after immigrants who are working in the fields and actually putting food on our table that makes cost less, and
And pay taxes.
who pay taxes and who don't collect any government benefits
Right.
because they're not citizens of the country. But this is the Republican Party today.
I think there's a real opportunity, Jesse, for the Democratic. I don't know if it's the party. I don't know
Yeah.
how I feel about the party, but for exciting candidates
Mhm.
like Josh in Iowa to start popping up and going around the Commonwealth of Kentucky and just being themselves and talking to their neighbors about these very issues. I
Right.
think that's what it's going to take.
Right, and it's also happening in New York with Mamdani. He's running for the mayor of New York City, and he's getting all this criticism from, well, because he's Muslim and he's an immigrant. And, I know you've seen that Donald Trump has sent the National Guard into Washington, D.C.,
Which is terrifying.
which is terrifying, and he didn't send the National Guard in when the Capitol was attacked. So we know where his priorities are. He doesn't give a damn about the preservation of this country. He just wants to attack brown people. And, Washington, D.C. is a black city.
And remember, these flock cameras, this surveillance,
Right.
it's going to be overdone in marginalized communities.
Especially when you have Peter Thiel, who's a tech guy, Elon Musk, who's a tech guy.
Who are Aryan
Yeah.
Nazis.
Well, they're South Africans who were raised in apartheid era South Africa, so you know that deep in their hearts they believe that brown people are inferior.
Right.
And they come to this country, these illegal immigrants, if you're going to talk about illegal immigrants, they come to the country, and I'll put Rupert Murdoch in that list of people because Rupert Murdoch is an Australian, and they shit on everything that this country stands for. They make millions of dollars on it, billions of dollars on it, by, I have to say, by taking advantage of gullible people who are going to send their money to them, who are going to support what they say, who treat them like they're gods because that's what they want to be treated as. And they've done more damage to this country than any minority group that Trump or whatever the right-wing Republicans will say.
And to my Republican friends, when we talk about fiscal conservatism, right?
God.
We talk about limited government. That's Rand Paul's thing about limited government. What we are seeing right now is absolutely the opposite of everything you've ever stood for. This is the most expensive administration in history of the country.
Right.
And talk about government overreach. Look what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now.
And look at the bullshit that they're putting up in Washington, D.C. Trump is going to build an extension to the White House that's bigger than the White House. That's
Yeah.
what he wants to do.
What's the price tag? $200 million for his ballroom?
Right.
Which represents the Gilded Age, those kinds of, the Astor Ballroom, or,
Well, if you look at Trump's properties, it's just, this pornographic expanse of gold. Who's going to put gold trim in the White House? Well, Donald Trump has.
Right.
Don't be surprised.
The People's House, by the way.
Well, it's his house now, but don't be surprised if he puts Trump in big letters on top of the White House because he puts his name on everything.
And never vacates it.
Right.
I want to shift gears a little bit to Andy Bashir's interview in Vogue magazine. There was a thought-provoking opinion piece by Charlie C.Y. in the Courier Journal on August 13th. When asked about the U.S. relationship with Israel and the war in Gaza, Bashir stated, "I believe when someone is an ally, when you disagree, you don't do it publicly or through the media." So, he's getting some flack for this. And, from a moral standpoint, why is it so hard to condemn genocide and state clearly the need for an end to this horrific war?
It makes no sense at all. And
Well, it makes sense, in terms of
politically,
money.
yeah, and in terms of political clout.
Political clout. But morally, and he's a good Christian.
Which brings me to the question of why is religion such a failure these days? You have the good Christians who are supposedly, the Christian followers of Donald Trump, who supposedly believe in the teachings of Jesus, but they don't want to let anyone in, as Jesus said. They don't want to show any compassion, as Jesus said, and they're the antithesis of what their alleged religion is supposed to be.
I think if Jesus, who would have been a brown man, tried to come in this country, he wouldn't be welcomed in the country.
No, well, I actually saw a video where someone went to a Trump rally and said, would you allow Jesus into the country if he were to come today? And the person pointed out that Jesus is from the Middle East and that he's of color. And the person that he was asking said, well, if he went through all the proper channels and did the proper paperwork, well, yeah. And it's like, wait a minute. So if Jesus Christ came to America today, Trump supporters would not let him in. So that tells you all you need to know about their religion and their beliefs. And there's just been this total failure in terms of religion, in terms of like protecting the meek, or
the most vulnerable.
The most vulnerable, or loving thy neighbor. That just doesn't exist anymore.
No. And related to this, I'm Jewish, and Honey Goldman, a friend of mine, wrote an op-ed that was published in the Lexington Herald Leader on August 12th, and she's talking about how anti-Semitism is being pulled out, focused on, and that hate speech is being used to attack our universities, proclaiming that they encourage violent protests and allow for employment of professors who are terrorists. But it seems that no other ethnic, religious, or racial group needs such protection from hate speech and violence as the Jewish people do. And, my feeling is anti-Semitism increasing? It is increasing, but, so is racism, so is xenophobia, sexism, Islamophobia, and homophobia. We've been talking about that. Mm-hmm. And frankly, Netanyahu's war machine is making Jews across the globe much less safe, mm-hmm. much less safe.
Mm-hmm. If you saw Mandy Patinkin, the actor, did this really intense takedown of Netanyahu and how much he's destroying Israel itself. And, Netanyahu, I believe that he's doing this because he's a criminal, he's under indictment, he could go to jail.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, our guy's is convicted. That's
34 times?
Yeah, but it's this idea that if you create a situation where people feel that they're under threat or in danger, you're not going to be kicked out of office because it's the rally behind the flag kind of idea, which is now you got things like Netanyahu doing what he's doing in Gaza. You got Donald Trump saying that Washington D.C. is a total hellscape, when in fact he did nothing when his supporters attacked the Capitol, shot in the Capitol building, destroyed the place.
But they were white.
Yes, I know. And they beat up police officers. Mm-hmm. And not only that, he didn't call in the National Guard when that happened, but when one of his, the incel who was working for Elon Musk, the guy called Big Balls, when he got mugged, it's a national disaster, and you have to bring in the troops to quell the craziness in Washington, D.C. And I have a place in D.C. D.C. it's a lot safer than it used to be. I remember it back in the 70s. And yes, I was afraid to go there. But I now have a place in D.C. that I use as a getaway every now and then. And I never felt in danger in D.C. But, Trump has made it like, oh, well, we're defending... Well, they're defending the Capitol from teenagers. Okay.
And it's the nation's capital. I mean, I think this sends a real signal to the rest of the world what's happening to our nation's capital right now.
But it's the first step because, he's already said that he's looking at other democratic cities. Notice how he doesn't say Republican
Right.
cities.
And he started in LA, of course.
Right, LA, he's done LA, he's done DC.
New York will be there.
If Mamdani wins New York, he's going to do it in New York. And he's not going to go into like Republican states that have more crime and more murders than these Democratic cities. So, it's all about race with Donald Trump. And if any of his followers don't see that, then I have to say they're racist too. They just have decided that whatever Trump is doing in terms of attacking people of color or attacking marginalized groups like children, who are, trans children who are
already bullied enough.
They're bullied within their own communities, and now you've got the president of the United States and people running for Congress bullying them as well. It's an easy.
That's very Christian, by the way.
Right, very Christian, and it's an easy target, which makes it even more repulsive, because they're not going to take on the. Let's say he's not going to take on Putin, and Putin's like conducting genocide in Ukraine. He's not going to take on Netanyahu. Like he's going to bring Netanyahu into the country. So
and he's meeting Putin in our country.
Yeah, he's meeting him in Alaska, giving validation to Putin, which is something Putin wants. He wants to be in the United States so he can show the international community that, look, America's bringing me in. So if I have America on my side, what do I have to worry about you? And I would like to think, or I actually do think, that Putin has something on Trump because of the whole alleged shower scene way back when that's part of the what Trump calls the Russia hoax. But I don't think there's a hoax there. It's Trump did try to get Russia to interfere in our elections, and they did, and that's why he beat Hillary Clinton. It's like the Manchurian Candidate. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but it's this plant by communist forces to take this right-wing fanatic and put him into the highest office possible. Well, the Manchurian Candidate has happened, and we have him now, and it's Donald Trump. So what are we going to do? We have to, again, if you want to stop this, you have to vote for people who are going to actually challenge these actions. And the next congressional election is 2026.
Right. And speaking of what to do, because I always want to be very concrete about examples of what we can do, so that the purpose of this regime is to overwhelm us and to make us feel so depressed and anxious that we can't do anything. But we certainly can do things. I want to start by just lifting up a local treasure, a good friend of mine, Roberta Hirschberg, and she's worked at the World Affairs Council for years, and there's a scholarship in her husband's name that helps international folks come here.
What does the World Affairs Council do?
They foster cultural exchange, and to understand global citizenship, and they bring a lot of international people to Louisville and across the state. And I've been invited to dinners where I've met Muslims from Iraq who I'm now close friends with on Facebook now, because we met, and they're beautiful, and we're people, and we broke bread together. That's what they do. They introduce people to global citizens, and what happens is they break down these barriers these racist, xenophobic barriers that we're witnessing in our country today. But she's getting an honor. It's the inaugural Global Champions Award, and that's going to be August 29th at the Galt House. And if you'd like to go to that, please, or just support them. Their great tagline reads, "Connect globally, inspire locally," which I really love. And they are at worldkentucky.org. So I wanted to lift them up because they do beautiful work. But I want to also just bring up the question that I'm asking, and I have some groups of friends that get together and sort of process this in different ways. But one of the things I'm really focused on is what is our sphere of influence, right? Where is our power? Each of us has power, and we're not all cookie cutter people. So are we more comfortable writing postcards or using our 5 Calls app or sending money to strong democratic causes or organizations like the ACLU or Planned Parenthood? Or there's a great environmental nonprofit, which not enough people know about, which is called the Kentucky Resources Council. And that nonprofit combines policy and advocacy to protect Kentucky's natural resources and to ensure environmental justice for Kentucky's most vulnerable people and communities. This is power, right? Money is power, our money is power, our time is power. And if we are a little more introverted, there are many, many ways for us to show up and fight this regime. Are we comfortable going door to door and talking to our neighbors? Not everybody is. But if we are, it's really fun, and it works really well, because it's like what I said about the World Affairs Council. When we show up at a door and we ask our neighbors what issues concern them, and we listen to them, and we don't shove things down their throat, but we listen, and then maybe we talk about, as LSURGE, which is Louisville Showing Up for Racial Justice. They're doing trainings. It's an organization for white people working for justice, and they have this "We Are All Neighbors" yard sign that we're now seeing pop up all over Louisville, and it's part of an initiative called Neighbors Keep Neighbors Safe. Sounds good, right? So one of the things you can do is go to the LSURGE Facebook page and see about their trainings. You could canvas, or what I'm doing, I'm the president of my neighborhood association, and I'm buying up these yard signs at about $10 a piece, and I'm getting my neighbors to buy a yard sign so that we can show Louisville that we are a welcoming, compassionate city, and that our neighborhood is all in. So that's an initiative.
What are the yard signs saying?
They say, "We are all neighbors." And so, for example, there is an organization in my neighborhood that serves the Latinx community and does beautiful work. And the clientele knows about these yard signs. And word is spreading amongst the community that when you see this yard sign, this is a welcoming family, this is a safe family, this would be a family you could turn to if you can't get home when your children get off the school bus, etc. So we are all neighbors, and this is done by LSURGE, right? There are other Facebook groups that have events constantly, and some of these are 50501KY. 5051 Kentucky, 5050 Kentucky. So 50 states, 50 events on the same day, typically, in every state. So check them out. Also, Indivisible Kentucky is on Facebook. And there's another good group called Democrats Volunteers. Actually, this one is in Louisville. Louisville Democrats Volunteers has a Facebook page. And I know Facebook is only for older people, or usually used by older people. So I think we should be looking. Please look at Instagram and TikTok and see if these places pop up. And if they don't, go ahead and reach out to us, and I will reach out to those organizations. But a couple of actions that are happening right here in Louisville that I want you to know about. There is a postcard writing session by the Louisville Democrat Volunteer Group. And that is Wednesday, August 20th at 7 p.m. And that's at Noble Funk Brewing Company. It used to be at Kroger's. Unfortunately, Kroger's is leaving our lower income, food insecure communities. But it's at Noble Funk Brewing Company. It's a fun place. You do not have to drink to go. It's 924 South 2nd Street in Louisville. That's Wednesday, August 20th at 7. And they also have a community service project that is super easy. And again, if we don't really want to be around crowds of people, they are collecting full-size toothpaste for the Center for Women and Families. The Center for Women and Families serves survivors of domestic violence. gives them shelter and connects them to resources so they can rebuild their life. So the Center for Women and Families is at 927 South 2nd Street in Louisville, and you can show up with your toothpaste right there. And then if you do love the feeling of a good protest, there is an upcoming protest called a Fight for Medicaid and Medicare rally, which we've been discussing. That's Saturday, August 23rd at 9 a.m. at Injustice Square Park. That is Jefferson Square Park, 301 South 6th Street.
Did you say Injustice Square Park?
Yeah, this is what it's called since the Breonna Taylor murder.
Oh, okay.
People have been basically protesting LMPD and all the surveillance and these murders of black people and the out of control situation that we're facing by the police, which I think you have something to talk about in the West End.
Well, the West End it is always being undervalued in this city, and there's this recent shooting going on there, which just made me think. We see what the government is doing in Washington, D.C. We've seen what the government is doing in California and Los Angeles in particular. When does it happen here? And why would we not be worried about it happening here? Because yes, there are dangers everywhere, but the dangers only apply more to our current government when it involves minority groups. Like if you're white and you're a Trump supporter, you can go in the Capitol and do all kinds of horrible things.
Or a church in Charleston, South Carolina.
You can be walking around with some automatic weapon at your disposal, freely, brandishing your weaponry. It's like what they're doing with ICE, the secret police, which is what they are. It's like a Gestapo. And they're going around with masks on, it's just picking people off the streets. And we should be more appalled by that than we are. Our Democratic representatives should be out in the streets yelling that this is wrong. And they're not doing that, which really is troublesome.
And we are such a welcoming, compassionate city, and some years we were like the 4th largest city to receive refugees because we have good quality jobs and affordable housing, and Bowling Green, the state, has really benefited from immigrants and refugees.
But we've seen that the mayor, Greenberg, has made this not a sanctuary city anymore. So, he's fallen in line like... I would compare it to the Vichy government during World War II, where you say you're defending your area or you're protecting your people, when in essence you're just succumbing to the will of the authoritarians, and which is what he's doing, which is what any school that pays off Trump is doing. It's what CBS has done with Paramount.
South Park is fun.
South Park is really, it's the only place I've seen that's actually going after him. But I've said this, I think, in our last podcast. It's really frustrating that the voices of reason are comedians.
Yeah.
That you look at Colbert, who's being taken off the air.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Jimmy Kimmel, who's under attack all the time. You look at South Park. These are the only people saying this is wrong.
Jon Stewart.
Jon
Trevor
Stewart.
Noah.
Yeah. They're all going through this, and but our institutions that's supposed to defend us, like our major news organizations, they've decided to just acquiesce. They're just like laying low. In my opinion, I think a lot of these reporters are, not reporting on what they know now because they have book deals coming down the road and they want to save it for their book after the government or after the country collapses. That's what Bernstein, Woodward. No, it was what Woodward did with his books. But it's really frustrating, and just the thought that the media isn't performing, how it should be performing. Again, I've said this before, but every time I look at the homepage of any news organization, there are all these stories on it that I think are just irrelevant given the situation we're in now. It's like the Courier Journal is doing this thing is, what are the 4 best cities in America? That was their, I think it was in today's, listing the 4 best cities in America, which is totally irrelevant these days because things are really horrible, but they're deciding that nothing's going on, that it's just...
Actually, the first thing I have on the online thing, maybe the second thing is, and the winner is the 2025 Kentucky State Fair, your favorite cake.
Yeah, this is the lead story in the Courier Journal. And I guess I have to just diverge a little here, but Sally Bingham died recently.
Right.
And Sally Bingham was a very rich woman, and she was part of the Bingham family, and the Bingham family owned the Courier Journal. And when the Bingham family owned it, it was considered one of the best newspapers in America, in the whole country. But Sally wanted her cut. She just wasn't getting the influence that she thought she deserved, which she didn't. And she offered to sell her stake, which led to Barry Bingham Sr. deciding to sell the whole company to Gannett. And now, when I was with Gannett, I was at the Courier Journal when it happened. And there were hundreds of reporters there, hundreds of journalists doing work for 2 newspapers covering the entire state, just a really respected paper in America. And after the Bingham sold, it's now today down to about 42 journalists. And what annoyed me was I was looking at the obituary for Sally in the Courier Journal. There was no mention of what she did to essentially destroy what was a great news organization. Maybe there was some other reference, but I looked at the obituary and just nothing. It was like, she didn't even live in Louisville anymore. She moved out to New Mexico, I think. And I remember reading a quote from her when the paper was sold, and she said it was good for Louisville, it was good for Kentucky, and it was good for the family. And she got one of the 3 right, because it was good for the family. When Gannett bought the Courier Journal, they paid $350 million, which was an outrageous sum for a regional newspaper at that time. And just to show how much it's changed in terms of the journalism profession, when Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post a couple of decades later, he paid $250 million for it, which means that the value of news in America was on a rapid decline by the time Bezos took over the Washington Post. And now that he's got it, and he's brought in former Rupert Murdoch people from the Wall Street Journal, another one of my former news organizations, it's become Wall Street Journal Light. So I've been through 3 news organizations that have been bought. I was at the Courier Journal when Gannett bought it. I was at the Wall Street Journal when Rupert bought it. And I was at the Washington Post when Bezos bought it. So maybe I'm just bad luck for newspapers, for respected newspapers.
It's all about you, Jesse.
Yeah, everything's about me.
Yeah.
But it's just really just a reminder that there are things that newspapers used to do, or news organizations used to do, to protect America, to point out the wrongs that were going on, and now everybody's in hiding, and they're leaving it to clowns. And I mean that in the favorable light, to funny people, to show us what's really going on in the country these days. And I've been watching these reaction videos to the South Park episodes, and what I'm finding is that the people who are reacting are young people, and they are learning things that they didn't know, because there was the whole last South Park episode was it Chrissy Nome, the former governor of
Christy.
Former governor of South Dakota,
Who shot her dog.
Shot her dog in the face. And,
Bragged about it.
yeah, she wrote, it's in her book. And she not only shot her dog, I think she shot 2 dogs and a horse, which people don't remember. But in these reaction videos, all these young people are looking, saying, why are they showing her shooting a dog? And it's like, that's what she bragged about. She was sort of pulled over raked over the coals about it originally, but she became the director of Homeland Security. And she's like rounding up brown people. And South Park captured that attitude very well. And people are learning from the comedians. They're not learning from our major news organizations, which is a condemnation of our major news organizations because, as you pointed out, the lead story in the Courier-Journal today is about cake.
Right.
I mean, that's very Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake.
Right.
But that's just a failure of, have a failure of journalism, have a failure of religion.
We have a failure of the
government.
legislative branch,
Yeah.
executive branch, and judicial branch.
And it's time for people to
People
wake
power.
up and take the country back from the bad people.
Right. And I want to interject something. I was too young to know what was happening at the newspaper when it dissolved, but I do want to say that Sally afterwards started the Kentucky Foundation for Women and was very philanthropic, especially to women. And I benefited by going to her house called the Hopscotch House. And the Hopscotch House was run to offer women retreat. There were artists, there were therapists, teachers, all kinds of people got to go to Hopscotch House. And the Kentucky Foundation for Women provides scholarships for women artists and things like that. So, I have compassion for a lot of people, and I just want to, make note of Sally's philanthropy and her compassion for the community. And I'm not going to discuss how that went down with the Binghams when I was a child because I don't really have enough information. One other thing I want to share is about white privilege, and I want us to wake up. I want us white people to really wake up and get out of our comfort zone. So Jesse and I walk a couple times a week, say, and we live in the same neighborhood, and we walk over to the University of Louisville, and we walk several miles together. And Jesse had a problem where he had dehydration and was hospitalized. We talked about that. So I bought him a water bottle, and I bought him this holster for the water bottle. It was a black holster. He could just put it over his shoulder so that he had water and he wouldn't get dehydrated. Well, Jesse sees the holster that I bought him, and I'm a white woman, right? And he said, Amy, I will be a target of the police if I wear this holster. They'll think I'm wearing a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? That's white privilege, y'all. I mean, I was so ignorant about what I had purchased him and what I thought was going to be helpful. And we need to be showing up, and we need to have friends who maybe have different skin colors so we can learn from each other, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I don't want my dear friend to get shot by the police at any time. So,
And your dear friend doesn't want to be shot by the police either.
and
so.
I'm wearing the holster because I'm less of a target. Because
Well, and plus, you can wear a holster and get away with it.
I can.
But
I think we should wrap up.
okay. Well, that was another good conversation. We will apply links to this on the website. And
Josh's video, I want you to be inspired.
Josh's
by him.
video will be there. The Nebraska congressman's video will be there. We'll have links to the things you referred to.
Good.
And we hope to be back in a couple of weeks for our 10th episode to just discuss more of what's going on in the city. So
And state.
and state.
And world.
Yes, and nation.
And nation.
So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll be back.
See ya.
Our closing music is by John Chamberlain.
Bye.